Hello world, what is the best type of company to work in? Is it big tech companies or it's startup companies? Or maybe it's old school corporations like banks and insurance companies? Let's find out today and categorize them by pay, work-life balance, benefits, management, culture, and of course experience and knowledge we kinda can get out of this company. Let's start from definition of each type of company. So what I'm saying, like big tech companies, it's obviously it's FANG-like companies, Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, Google, Microsoft, and all other tech companies which is already on Nasdaq market or close to Nasdaq market, right? We will define startup company which could be on A, B or C series, but it's not on the market yet. But let's not include companies like big companies like TikTok, let's say, or OpenAI, because those are exception for this. They mostly act like a big corporation. Old school institution, I would say it's like you work in the Bank of America or JP Morgan or Chase, or in insurance companies like Geico, and companies similar to that. So companies where you have IT department but their main business is not IT or tech. Tech is just solution for them. Let's compare these companies by the first category, pay. I think it's the most important part because we exchange our time for money while we employee. Big tech companies pay the most, right? So total compensation. What is total compensation in the tech industry? It includes base pay, sign-in bonus, and RCU or stock units. In big tech companies, junior position starts from around 120k in average and can go up to 200k. Middle engineer will make around 250k and can go as high as 300k. Senior engineer position is gonna be 350k plus in big tech companies. Of course, there are principal staff engineers, but let's just narrow our scope to give the understanding. It's gonna be enough. In startup companies, it's really hard to narrow how much they pay for junior engineers because the range is so high. I mean, it could be as low as 50k, 60k, 80k, right? So they will just be as frugal as possible and try to fill position with minimal resources. But let's say for middle engineer, they're gonna pay around 120k, and for senior engineer around 150k. Plus, on top of that, they will provide some amount of stock units, but these stocks, they're not actually a stock because company is not on the market yet, on public market yet, right? So it's kind of paper money. So they can give you like 100k, 200k on top of the base pay, but does it really matter? I mean, of course it is kind of matter when you receive 0.06 of company, but most likely this startup will die and you will not receive anything, right? So I would not take this in consideration as real money because you can't cash out right away. And for old institution type of companies, for junior engineer, I would say it's really good start. They pay around like 100k, 110k. For middle engineer, it's like 120, 130k, and for senior engineer is around 150k. No RCU, so base pay, it's all you got. Maybe you will get some bonuses like 5 to 10k, but if company performs well, but that's basically it. Taking all said into consideration, let's estimate every type of company. Big tech companies pay, I would say 5 out of 5. It's hard to beat big tech companies because their stocks really matter something. You can cash out anytime you want, so it's really good, and they actually grow. You have appreciation on these stocks. For startup companies, I will give 2 out of 5, and the reason for that, we will discuss it in the next category, because you're gonna work a lot more. And that's why basically your hourly rate is dropping dramatically, because instead of 8 working hours per day, you're gonna work 12, 16 hours per day in the startup companies. So basically it cuts your pay rate per hour, and that's why I would estimate it 2 out of 5, because not every startup the same, but it's still good money, right? Making a 6-figure is still good money, but you need to really work. For old institution, I would say 3 out of 5, and the reason for that, because there are not much room for growth, right? So once you have like a middle position in the company, you can't really make more, right? Like from 120 to 150k, 30k, I mean, it's kind of fine, but like you can go somewhere else and work in a big tech companies and make like 200 something. The difference is dramatic. That's why I would say 3 out of 5. Let's move on and compare for next category, work-life balance. I think it's the most important category, because the quality of life dictates by the stress you have during your work, by the amount of hours you spend for your work. So great work-life balance is a game changer for making these kind of decisions. Let's start from startup companies, because it's really fun to discuss it. Because in startup companies, you really need to work your ass off, because company basically in a survival mode, because everyone works to keep company floating just to survive, and everyone squeezed so hard for that, and it's understandable, right? For that reason, I would give 2 out of 5 for startup companies, because it's just kind of not worth it. Imagine you have kids and you need to work 12 or 16 hours per day. I mean, it's horrible, right? For old institutional companies, the work-life balance is actually really decent. I would estimate it 4.5 out of 5, and the reason for that is because old school companies has a huge problem with bureaucracy. Red tape literally slowing down the process is so bad, then you can just chill there, right? So it's a really decent work-life balance. You can work a couple of hours per day and close your tasks pretty fast, because the problems are trivial. To push some things, you need so many approvals and so on and so forth. Of course, this company trying to change it, but it's not tech company, so they will still perform according to their business model, to their regulation and stuff. It's fun. So, I mean, it's a really decent lifestyle there. And for big tech companies, I would estimate them 3.5 out of 5. And the reason for that, because the pace is really reasonable. So in average, in the big tech companies, people move in a reasonable pace in terms of like you given the estimate, you add some risk to these estimates, and you following these deadlines. So everyone's understand the problem in the team, management understand what you're doing, and it's kind of good pace. It's not slow pace, so you can't just slack off and chill. No. You need to work, but you need to work consistently and you need to be predictable. The bottom line is, out of all these 3 types of companies, old institutional companies is really good. We can add an old institutional company, military company, because it's a common knowledge that in an old school companies with a huge bureaucracy, it's a perfect work-life balance, right? So if you want to chill and coast, go there and sit there, slack off and enjoy your 6-figure salary, and that's gonna be your chill life. Okay, let's move on to the next important part, is the benefits, because benefits is important for your life and your lifestyle and lifestyle of your family, because the type of medical insurance you have, dental insurance, discounts, and all these jazz is as important as your pay, right? In big tech companies, it's 5 out of 5. In most of big tech companies, you have bunch of different type of medical insurance. You have a decent dental insurance. You have discounts. You have a free food. You have free rides, and so on and so forth. It is just so good that it's hard to beat. I mean, I think it's the best not only in tech industry, but in any other industry. For startups, things are not that good, because let's say 41K, right? Not every startup has a 41K. I have a statistic here, and according to statistic, seed stage startup, basically it's uncommon to have 41K, and it's reasonable because to set up 41K, you need to spend extra money for a company, and during the seed stage, you don't have this money. You're just purely trying to survive. On a Series A, it's around 40% of startups have 41K benefit for their employee. For Series B, it's 75%, and for Series C is around 100%, right? Because it's almost like a big tech corporations. So we can clearly see that even 41K, as simple as that, you will not get it. I'm not saying about free food, discounts and other stuff, but just to optimize your taxes with 41K, you might not have it in a startup company. For that reason, I would give it for big tech companies 5 out of 5, and for startups 2 out of 5. But what about banks, right? Banks actually provide decent benefits, almost as good as big tech companies. They provide you 41K, dental insurance, health insurance, but no free food, no cool discounts, no team events like in the big tech companies when you just go and play golf with your team with some budget your team has. So that's why, I mean, it's still good, right? You have average good benefit. So for old institution, I would estimate 3.5 out of 5 for benefits they provide. So they're still good, okay? Let's move to the next category. I would call it management or process, development process inside of the team. And I believe it's really interesting to compare all these three types of companies because it shows the level of the game inside of the company. So when I joined Fan Company, I was surprised that any type of problem, from small to big problem, it's gonna be solved using scientific way. And at that moment, I just realized why I have degree in the computer science. Because basically, to solve even tiny little thing, you need to make experiments, you need to collect the data, you need to provide couple of options to solve the problem, then you need to discuss and collaborate in a team, and you will go through this loop couple of times. And the best approach to do so, it's like playing against yourself on the chessboard. So you make a move, you turn the chessboard and you think what is the next move. So you kind of asking yourself a question, how it's gonna affect your customers? Is it scalable? And then you will not just answer according to your feelings. No. You're gonna find the data, and if you don't have a data, you will collect it first and then you will make a decision. Then you will find the best solution. Because this type of corporation, they require solid ground for any decision. Most of the times it's really time consuming to solve even tiny problems. And that's why big tech companies has so many engineers, because every even tiny solution you made should be justified by the data. That's why I would give for big tech companies 4.5 out of 5 for the management and processes inside of the company, because it's really cool to have this experience and to make this high bar of making decision. That's what's really new for me. But what about startup companies? In startup companies, it's a pure chaos in terms of the management and process. Of course, it could be fun for someone, but decision kinda made intuitively, because startups, they don't have so much data to justify their solution. So they kinda has someone with authority who's saying what they should do, or person or software engineer can make their move according to some feeling or experience they have. And that's how it is, because in startup they like to fail fast. So they build things fast and like to fail fast. And that's why for startups I would give 2.5 out of 5. Because absence of processes is also kind of a process, and unexperienced management which unify a couple of positions, team lead, tech lead, manager, and so on and so forth, it's fine, it could be fun because you can move really fast, but itself it's really low quality. But what about banks? In the banks it's kind of simple. It's a high level of bureaucracy. You have managers who came from business. They barely have an understanding in tech, they barely have experience in tech. They kind of understand what you're doing, but for them it's more like a factory. So they expect you to produce an amount of lines of code for an amount of time. Of course, I mean, it's generalization. Some companies try to evolve, but the problem is they just copy big tech processes inside of them. But the reality is they are not in the tech business, okay? They're in finance or they're in insurance business. So there are business people who make decisions because business people are in charge. Business people makes money. No tech people makes money in these kind of companies. That's why it works poorly and it's slow. Most likely it's a waterfall. Of course, they try to use some fancy things like Scrum, Agile, but it usually doesn't work. In a nutshell, big tech companies 4.5 out of 5, startups 2.5 out of 5, and all corporation 3.5 out of 5. What about technical expertise and experience you get inside of the company? And that's where the startup company really shine. And the reason for that, in startup companies, you can build either broad knowledge or really deep niche knowledge. So because you build things out of scratch, you use new stuff, new libraries, new OS version, everything fresh. So you try the cutting edge technology and you incorporate them in the current company. And problems you solve are usually narrow. Let's say it's machine learning or AI, and you trying to dive deeper in the technologies and in the niche to have advantage to beat your competitors. So for that reason, I would give startup 4.5 out of 5, because you have broad responsibilities, you have new technology, and you get an experience in the niche. What about big tech companies? In the big tech companies, you kind of get a T-shaped type of expertise and experience. What I mean by that? So you kind of have some broad experience and depth. So, and you go in really deep, because the problem a big tech company solves, they are unique, they could be innovative. Of course, it could be niche as well, but in a highest quality level. But the problem is you also usually have a legacy system, kind of legacy system, not like in old corporations, but like 10 years code, 10 years technology, and you still need to use them. And also all big tech companies, they have their own software which you're going to use. And that's funny, but it's not transferable at all. So you need to invest your time to learn these tools, deployment tools, pipelines, and all of this stuff. But you can transfer it, you can use it in your CV basically. You can came to another company and just start applying this. You need to learn it over and over again. So for that reason, I would give for big tech companies 4 out of 5 because it's really good knowledge, it's really good experience. But some of this experience are not transferable at all. But the problem and the solution you need to find and scale and the quality of problems and solution and the quality of people in the big tech company is really a top notch, okay? But it's not perfect. But what about old school institutions? So in the old school institution, the problem is you have system which is worked since like 80s or 90s and you barely can change it. So there are not many things you can innovate, can't change them. You can't just learn them. You can kind of get some niche knowledge. Let's say if you're in insurance or you're in medicine or you're in a bank. So you kind of get in this understanding how Visa works, how MasterCard works, let's say, and then you can move to another bank and bring this knowledge there. From the technical perspective, it's really poor because it's legacy and it's not that good. They just use some ready-to-go solutions and they're transferable, but it's not really fun things to watch. You just incorporate them. You're not really diving deeper into these tools. And for that reason, I would give it 3 out of 5 for expertise you can get in old school institutions. And last but not the least is culture. What about culture, right? Because the environment in which you work on, it affects everything. The quality of your work, work-life balance, and even if they pay you well, you don't really want this money. If the environment is toxic, it's not worth it, right? But the problem is that startups usually in survival mode, and it's really high pressure and dense environment. Everyone's to perform, people are stressed, people required to move faster, and that's the perfect place to be a toxic top performer. Unfortunately, that's why for that reason for startup companies, I would assess it 1 out of 5. We have a bunch of example. Let's say Uber, right? In early days, Uber was the place where women's rights didn't really matter. Guys who were performing well could be misogynistic and really suppressing women, can be rude, too straightforward, not being politically correct. And in general, culture in startups are not diverse because they don't really care about it. They just want to survive and find the best on the market they can get, and that's it. You need to have a thick skin to work in a startup culture. But what about big tech companies? For big tech and old corporation, I estimated them 4 out of 5. And the reason for that, because they really build the system, right? So you have onboarding when they explain you how to act, how to speak, how to be inclusive, and so on and so forth. And 4 out of 5 just because it's not perfect, okay? So let me tell you a little story. When I came to the United States and when I joined one of the biggest world company, right? It's a big tech company, fan company. I got all of these onboarding materials about inclusion and stuff. Funny enough, but after a month, we had the first event where it was couple of teams, not only our team, and the person from other team came to me and he was drinking the cocktail and we were in the bar and he asked me, why don't you drink? And I'm like, well, I don't really drink. And he's like, but you're from Eastern Europe. And I'm like, yes, so? And like, you guys heavy drinkers. And I'm like, I kind of felt offended at that moment, but that's the stereotype we have, right? So people from Eastern Europe, they're heavy drinkers, and I can't really blame him for thinking in stereotypes because that's how people think. You know, I didn't report him to HR or something, I didn't rat him out, but it wasn't a pleasant experience. I can't say, oh, he's racist or something, because this person also an immigrant, right? But this kind of statement he made, it was offensive. And for that reason, I given it like 4 out of 5 because people are not perfect, okay? So culture is people and people are not perfect, so I can't say any company has 5 out of 5. For old school corporations, it's still big corporation, right? They old schoolish, maybe they don't have gender neutral toilets, you know, but they're still really good in terms of being inclusive and being politically correct. But because they're not that modern, I would put it 4 out of 5. They don't really have that amount of diversity which people on working visas providing, but it's still decent culture to work in. So I will keep it short and sweet. For people who really want to know and be the best in the industry, it's a big tech companies, okay? The highest pay, the most complex job. It's competitive, but it's good. Your choice is the big tech companies. For people who value work-life balance more than anything else, old school corporation is a top-notch solution. For people who really want to have some interesting experience, who want to roll the dice, for people who want to participate in some adventure, those people should choose startups. So of course you made a lot of generalization, right? So every situation is different, every company is unique, but in average, that's how situation look like. So let me know in the comments below what you value more: pay and money of big tech companies, work-life balance of old school institutions, or some adventure and risk and high pace and expertise, of course, of startups.